I'm so excited for you guys tonight. Every once in a while, we have kind of a standalone in-between week where we're in between series or whatever it might be, just the way the semester falls and all the different things. And so it's always cool to me how God will kind of orchestrate the opportunities to have different people come in and speak, whether it's Eddie or Brian. But I especially love for you to get to hear from your peers. And so I know a lot of you know Ben Walker, but I've been so encouraged this last week just having conversations with him. He is a very authentic, kind, humble man. And so I know that you're going to be blessed by what he has to share with you tonight. So and here's the deal, getting up in front of your peers is challenging, okay? You guys are a tough crowd, all right? I know I've told you that before, but I'm praying for you, and I know you're going to be encouraged. So can you please give Ben Walker a big round of applause, please? Give him a big welcome as he makes his way to stage.
Hello. So, I'm very thankful for this opportunity. I'm grateful that Daniel decided to ask me to do this. And for starters, I kind of wanted to say that I understand that many of you guys also have very interesting stories, and that whatever I have to say is not any more important than you guys. And so I'm fortunate to be able to do this. I feel like I don't really have a crazy story, but I feel like God has been doing a lot for me, and I'm very thankful for that. So that's kind of what I'll talk about today. So for starters, growing up, I've been raised in a Christian family and everything. I went to a church in Rose Hill for a long time, growing up, and then we ended up switching because there was some drama that kind of happened. And honestly, I was super young when it happened, so I don't know all the details of it. But so we ended up leaving a church in Rose Hill and going to a different church for a while, and it was a church plant, so it was a startup church. And then so we were there for 5 years, and then that church ended up dissolving, it didn't end up working out. And then another church also in Rose Hill started up again, and so then we went there for 6 years. And that one is still going on, but about a year ago, it was in January last year, my family was just kind of feeling led, felt like that church wasn't fully working for us, and it was nothing against that church. We liked it and we liked the people there, but we just kind of were looking for something different. So then it was February, the first week of February last year, that my family started going to New Spring. And I love it here. I'm very thankful. I think that was the right decision to make. And then I started going to Collide in the semester before this one. So in September last year is when I started going here. And that's actually what I want to focus on today. I feel like these past few months, just since September, have been the most meaningful for me. And I feel like God's been blessing me so much, and it's been the most important, impactful thing for me in years, I feel like. So to start this off, I'll say ever since I graduated high school, I felt like I had a pretty difficult time making friends in college and everything. I felt very lonely for a while. It was after I graduated, I didn't have super close friends in high school. I definitely had friends, and I'm very thankful for those people, but not super close friendships. I never hung out with people outside of school. And then once I graduated, it was I never saw those people again. And then it was a very difficult time to try to make friends in college. And it was I would talk to people in my classes and everything. I don't think that was the issue of me starting conversations and meeting new people. I feel I was pretty good at that. It was just difficult to get those friendships to actually last beyond the semester and once the class was over. So I felt for the last couple years after graduating, because I graduated high school and then I went to Butler for a couple years, and then this year is my first year at WSU, and I feel it's just been very difficult to meet new people, and the friendships that I tried to make just weren't working out really. But I feel that actually just changed recently when I started going to Collide, and I'm I'm super thankful for that. It's been amazing. And I also feel like I should mention that Daniel did not just pick me to come up here today just so I can talk good about Collide today, even though I feel like that's kind of what I'll be doing a little bit. So yeah, once my family started coming to New Spring in February last year, I kind of like knew that Collide existed, partially because of my friend Emily, who I went to Butler with. Like we met each other in a college class. And she was the only person, or one of the only people at this church that I actually knew before coming here. So once we started going to New Spring, I like let her know about that, and like she's kind of like how I knew about Collide. But I was kind of like nervous about going because like it's a new environment and I don't know anybody, and so it's kind of scary. And then so I hadn't gone for a little bit, and then they took the summer off. And so then I was like, well, I don't have to feel bad about not going now because they're not doing it anymore. But then when the new semester started, I was like, this would probably be a good time to do this because I won't be the only new person. It'll be kind of like new for everybody. So I decided, I was considering coming. And then on September, I remember this exact day because it was very meaningful to me. September 4th, there was a first Wednesday, and it was like just a couple days before Collide started, which was on September 7th. And so it was before first Wednesday, and I was talking to Emily again about Collide, and I was like, should I go? Like, what is it even like? Like, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. And then we were having that conversation, and then Haley Baker came over, and so I started talking to her for a little bit, and she was like kind of answering some of my questions that I had. And then that conversation kind of died down. I was sitting there, and then like two guys behind me that I had never met before, they're like, who are you? Like, what's your name? And so I found out that those people were Zach and Mitchell. I'm very thankful for meeting them, and like it was cool to get to at least know a couple faces. So like that kind of eased the nervousness of like starting to going to Collide. I was like, at least there's a couple people that I like know of. So yeah, I ended up deciding to go to Collide, and that's been like probably one of the best decisions that I've made last year. And I'm very grateful for that. And so today I'm going to talk about, I want to talk about 7 like things that kind of stood out to me or that God made like more obvious to me through this whole process, and just kind of aspects of the story that showed me different things. So the first thing I want to talk about is to trust in God's perfect timing. So like I said, like how I've kind of come from a few different churches like growing up, and I feel like the timing, I believe that the timing that God had planned out, like I don't know exactly why he led us to different churches. Like I don't know exactly like what he was trying to like teach us with that, but I do believe that it was for a reason. And I'm not like, oh, I should have been coming to this church like a long time ago. Like I believe that there's probably a reason for it. I don't know exactly what it is, but I trust God's timing and think that things might not have worked out so well for me. Like if it wasn't for the whole process and everything. And like, it's kind of interesting because actually in between churches at one point, like when I was probably like 8 years old or something, it was between the first church and the second church that we went to, my parents were like trying different places. And one of the places that they came to was New Spring, and I was there, but I was like super little, and I like just vaguely remember that. But it's kind of interesting that we came here, but at that time we didn't really feel like led here. Like it didn't feel like it was the church for us at the time. And so I think it's kind of interesting because when we were like a year ago, when we were decided to leave the church that we came from, and we didn't have New Spring in mind. We just felt like we probably felt led to be going somewhere else. And so New Spring was actually the first place that we tried again, and we loved it, and we were like, well, why do we even need to try other places? Like, this seems like a great church. And so we've been going here ever since. And also about God's timing, I would say I felt like, so like I mentioned, like when I was in after I got out of high school, and I was like, I felt like, honestly, I felt lonely for a really long time. I mean, I was never like depressed or anything, like I was fine, but I was like, definitely a desire of mine. Like I felt like I was kind of missing out on that. And I feel like looking back on the past 3 years or whatever, I think that in that time I was just like in a period of waiting. Like I think that God had this plan worked out the entire time, and I just like wasn't seeing it. And it was just a season of waiting that maybe God was trying to like show me something in that time. So I think I think it's important that you don't lose hope for like if things don't seem to be working out for you exactly how you think, that maybe you're just like waiting for, like maybe it's just not happened yet. So I'd say like don't lose hope for things that don't seem to be working out at the moment. And like I also noticed how like I'm 20 years old now, and I felt like for a lot of my teenage years, I felt like I was missing out kind of because like I said, like in high school and things, like I didn't really have like super close friends that I would like hang out with and do stuff with. But looking back on, like I have that now, like I have close friends now that I'm super thankful for. And I'd say like, sure, like I didn't have that when I was like a teenager, but I think once you get the things that you've been waiting for, it's like, it doesn't matter so much like when it happens, like, you know, it's just, you have them now, and like the past doesn't really matter at that point. And it's good to remember that our lives are on God's timeline and not ours, and that there's not a specific time in your life for different things. Like it's just however God wants it to work out for you. And that God will work in the background while it may seem like nothing's happening. Like I said, for those 2 years, it's like people would come and go oftentimes. And there were like some people that I made somewhat close friendships with, and I don't want to like ignore those people or anything. But so yeah, it's God works in the background even when it might not seem apparent to you. So that's, I think, something to keep in mind. The second main thing that I feel like I learned from this is that sometimes God will remove things in your life to bring something better. So, interesting story that happened in like the spring semester of 2024, so like a little more than a year ago. Actually about a year ago. So I was I was taking classes at Butler, and there was this one guy in one of my classes that I was really hoping to become friends with, because like I said, like I was always trying to become friends with new people, and there was this one guy in one of my classes that I talked to a lot, and I was kind of like trying to become better friends with him. And like we would text and stuff, like I had his phone number and we would talk sometimes. But I've noted like, and we would always talk about hanging out. We're like, we should hang out and do blah, blah, blah. But it would never end up actually happening. And like, he was kind of inconsistent, like if he would answer my texts or not. But it was just like weird, like mixed signals, because I was like when I was talking to him and texting, like he totally did not seem uninterested in being my friend at all. Like he seemed like he wanted to hang out and everything, but it would never actually end up happening. And so I feel like, sorry, hold on. So yeah, it was like we would try to become friends this whole time, but it would never actually end up working out. But looking back on that, and okay, here's another detail I should mention. So he was kind of, I could tell like he kind of had some bad like habits. Like he would do things that, he was definitely not a believer, and he sometimes would make bad decisions and did things that were not good for him. And like I recognized that, and I think like partially I just like wanted to be friends with, I just wanted to make friends with people. And like I think part of me was even hoping like that maybe I could be a good influence on him. But so yeah, we would always try to hang out, but it never would end up happening. And I thought that was like pretty upsetting. Like I thought that was very confusing, and I was like kind of frustrated. I was like, why is this never working out? But like looking back on that, I don't talk to him anymore. And I was annoyed with that at the time, but looking back on all the things that God has given me now, I see that God had a plan the entire time, and that I think that he removed him from my, like, I think the fact that he wouldn't answer my text sometimes is because I think that God knew that he wasn't meant to be my friend. And I didn't see that at the time, but looking back on that, I think that that's cool that God took him from my life. Like, maybe that was a path that I wasn't meant to go down. So it's important to see that God's ways are greater than ours, and we might not always understand what he's doing, because, like, at the time when that wasn't working out, I felt pretty annoyed. Like, I was, like, bothered by that. But now, like, I've met a lot of people here, and I'm very thankful for the friends God's given me. And I think it's cool to look back on that and see how he shapes your life and removes things that are maybe harmful for you. Isaiah 55, verses 8 and 9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." And sometimes that's just like a reminder that we need to keep in mind. And yeah, so like things work out. God works for your good, and even when it doesn't seem like that at the time. And another interesting thing about like how God works in your life and can see things that you don't see at the time. So actually, like a couple weeks ago, I think this was kind of interesting. So Daniel had put a text in the Catalyst team group chat, and it was a very wholesome text message, and I thought it was very meaningful. And I have never texted Daniel before, but I decided, I was like, I should reach out to him. Like, I just felt like giving him some encouragement, I guess. So I texted him like the next day, and I was like, hey, and just kind of like said, I felt like you're doing a great job, kind of thing. And then his response surprised me, because he was like, this is amazing that you're texting me right now, because I was actually thinking about you yesterday. And then he was like, and that was when he asked me if I would be interested in sharing my testimony. So I think that's I feel like that was a God thing, like the fact that I had never texted Daniel before, and the one time I do, it was like he was thinking about me and then asked me to do this. And I thought that was pretty cool. The third thing that I feel like I've learned from this is, do not choose things that are not meant for you just because you're desperate. So interesting thing. So like when we started going to New Spring and stuff, my parents actually encouraged me to go to Collide, and I didn't want to. So because I felt like I knew what was best for me, and there was people like at school and stuff that I was trying to become friends with, and in my mind I was like, there's no, like these people, like, I mean, we seem to like each other. I'm like, there's no reason that I can't become friends with these people that I already know. But my parents were like, you should try going to Collide and see if you can make friends there. But I was like, there's no reason I should have to do that. Like, there's already people in my life that I should be able to become friends with. And so, yeah, so like I was praying a lot, like for the people that I was like trying to become friends with, like wanting these friendships to work out. But then they didn't end up working out, but God brought me people that are better for me than the people that I thought that I wanted. Just like the guy that I mentioned before from Butler that I was like trying to become friends with, but maybe not have been the best for me. God removed him from my life and gave me people that are much better. It kind of, I saw this like quote, I think. It was maybe even on like Instagram or something. I'm not sure where I saw it, but it says something along the lines about like, maybe God removed you from a table that was serving you poison. And I feel like that's a very meaningful thing to me. Like, sometimes you might be upset about things that get taken away from you, but God might be doing that to protect you from something, and knows that it's better for you to not have that thing that you thought you wanted. So yeah, God will exceed what you want for yourself. Like sometimes you think you know what you want, but you don't really, but God has your best interest in mind. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 says, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. So I feel like that's an important thing to keep in mind. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is God brings peace, not confusion. So like if there's something in your life that's new or whatever and it's not bringing you peace, it's probably not from God. And this, I think, relates to the people that I was trying to become friends with before, just like how that one guy was like, he would never answer my texts, or he would, but it was very inconsistent whether he would. And I never knew if he like actually liked me or not. And that was like a common theme with a lot of the people that I would talk to, is like I never felt peace about it. It was like always worried. I'm like, do these people like me? Like, is this friendship going anywhere? But the people that I've met here and the friends I have now have brought me a lot of peace, and I feel like it's very clearly given to me from God, and I feel like it's like they're very, like it gives me peace, and I know that it's good for me. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that whatever God has meant for you, you won't have to chase it. You know, like if God wants you to have something, you don't have to worry about it. Like you can be at peace knowing that that's meant for you and that that's God's plan for you. And if that thing gets taken away, then that's because that's God's plan for you too. And that maybe that's just another thing that you don't see like how it's good for you, but it probably is. So yeah, I think it's important to know that like things that cause anxiety and stress are probably not from God, but if it brings you peace, that it probably is. Next thing that I learned from this is that God can turn things around when you never expect it. So like that first Wednesday where I was talking to Emily and met Haley and Zach and Mitchell, and then started coming to Collide a few days after that, like it felt like an overnight change for me. Like I was lonely and like wishing that I had friends, and I felt like that area of my life wasn't like working out for me. But then like it felt like just like all of a sudden that changed for the better. And I never like, not that I didn't have hope for that to get better, but it was like I didn't know that was that close. You know, like that, it was just like amazing in my opinion, like to see how fast God can work in your life, like things that you don't see an end to, or you're like how can this get better, you know? But it's very surprising, like what God can do in your life, and He can solve your problems in ways that you don't think of. Like there might be something that is stressing you out or causing problems, and you're like, this is something that's can't be solved, or like there's no way out of this, but like God sees things that you don't and can find ways out of things that you never even imagined. And I think that's very cool. And like I said before, like how I was trying to become friends with certain people, but then God gave me people that I wasn't, like, because I was praying to like be friends with specific people, which was probably a mistake on my part, because God gave me different people that I am more grateful for than I would have been for the people that I was asking for at the time. And God knew what was best for me, even though I couldn't see it for myself. So yeah, I'd say to like stay hopeful. Like anything that's causing you trouble in your life, don't worry about it. Like stay hopeful. Don't feel depressed. Like it won't get any better, because God can change things at any time that you don't expect, in any way that you might not expect. And I think that's pretty cool. The next thing that I feel like has been shown to me is that having a good community helps you grow. So I feel like ever since, like before coming to New Spring, so the church I came from, there was about like 50 people. It was a very small church, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I'm not trying to say anything against that church or small churches or anything like that. But at that church, there was nobody that was like my age. Like I didn't really have like church friends. Like I knew people at the church, but it was like nobody that was like peers or whatever. And I didn't realize like what I was missing until I came here and started going to Collide. And like the friends that I've made here has like had such a positive influence on me and helped me grow in my faith. Like I'm not used to being surrounded by by friends that are believers and that want to help me grow in my faith. There's a verse in Hebrews 10, verses 24 and 25, and it says, "Let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." So I think that's important to see, like how people are better together and can help each other out and help each other grow. And like an example of this is like getting friends that are Christians have helped me have helped show me like how much room I have to grow in my faith. Like I've been in conversations with people that I've met here where they're like talking about the Bible and stuff, and they're like talking about things that I had no idea what they were even saying. And I was like, and that was kind of like discouraging. I was like, oh, I really should know whatever they're talking about, but like I don't. But I think that overall that's a good thing, because then it shows me, I'm like, well, like I felt like I was a pretty like good Christian, but I was like, that's shown me like I definitely have room to grow, and more things to know about the Bible and God and everything, and I think that's pretty cool. And having friends has also pushed me to try new things that are pretty scary. And I would say I feel like that's another way that you grow, is by like getting out of your comfort zone and trying new things. And I'm not very good at that. Like that's scary for me. But I would challenge you and myself to say yes to things that make you uncomfortable, especially if it's something that God is leading you to and that you know would be good for you. Like you should trust that God will take care of you when you try something new. And obviously that's not true of bad decisions. Like use discretion, like if you know something's like stupid, like don't be like, oh, God will take care of me. Like make sure it's something like you actually know is good for you, but maybe you're just scared to do it. But you should trust that it'll work out, because God provides. So like an example of this is like, Zach actually invited me to like a couple months ago to go to this conference in Texas, and I was super scared about that, and I ended up saying yes. And then like when it was the week, when we got there, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, honestly. I was like, this is freaking me out. Like I was kind of panicked the first day, but then I got adjusted, and it was actually a really great time, and I'm very thankful that I went. And I feel like that's just an example of like God makes things work out, and that it's good to try new things, and that helps you grow. And so that's something that has been shown to me, is like having community has led me to take steps in directions that I wouldn't have taken otherwise, and that has helped me grow as a person. The last thing is that I think is important to do is to notice God's blessings. So I think that it's important to take note of like notice when God gives you the things that you pray for, and just all the great things that God does in your life. Like don't let it go unnoticed. I feel like it's pretty easy to complain about life. Like there's so much stuff in the world that it's like it's easy to get upset about things. But I feel like it's much more beneficial to pay attention to the good things in life and all the great things that God gives us. Even like small moments. Like sometimes, like I feel like once you look for God's blessings and just everything you have to be thankful for, like they're everywhere. Like just small things throughout every day. Like I think it's important to take notice of those things and not let those things go unappreciated. I also think it's important to thank God for all of the great things that he does, and for answering prayers. And like, when talking to people about the things God does for you, like don't forget to give him credit for like the things that he does. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at that, but it's something that we should all probably get better at. I also think that it's good to not forget where God brought you from. Like, the things that you have now that you might take for granted, but you used to pray for those things, and you're like living in that prayer. And like, I would say don't forget the things that you didn't have before that you do now, and don't take those things for granted. Another disclaimer, like I'm not, all the things that I'm talking about tonight, like I'm not trying to say that I'm perfect at all these things, but they've been more revealed to me, and I feel like that they're things that we could all, including myself, could work on. So to finish this off, so I want to say if Collide hasn't had the same impact for you as it has for me, and maybe you were wanting it to, I'd say don't be discouraged, because God's story is different for all of us. He has plans that we don't know about, and he has our best interests set in his mind. And like I said, like if you feel like your prayers aren't being answered, or you're like waiting for something to happen, then maybe you're just in a season of waiting. And sometimes that can be hard, and you don't know, like I feel like 2 years after high school, I feel like I was, like looking back on that, I feel like I was just waiting in that time and just like wanting things to work out that weren't. But so I feel like that really shows, like, try to have hope for the future and just trust that things will work out. Lamentations 3 verses 22 and 23 says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end, and they are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." God's plans for each of us are different, like his plan for me is different than for you, but that's not better or worse. Like, it's just different, and we all have different paths that we take, but there's nothing, if it's God's will, like there's nothing wrong with that. His goodness is the same for all of us, even though our stories may be different. And I think that we should all just know and trust and believe that God wants what's best for you, whatever that looks like. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for listening to me.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. That was awesome. That takes a lot of courage to do. So one more time, give it up for Ben. Thank you for sharing that. He's a very humble guy. I want to pray for you guys before you go, because I feel like that was so encouraging, and just hearing it, gosh, that's like the third time I've gotten to hear it, and it's good every time. The thing that stood out to me the most was you said, don't make choices for you that are not meant for you just because you're desperate. That was such a good statement. And I think that I'm just so encouraged. So thank you very much. Let me pray for you guys. God, thank you so much for Ben. Thank you for what you do in his life. Thank you for his courage to share how you've worked. It never ceases to amaze me the way that you do incredible things in each of our lives. And just thank you for his testimony tonight. And I know it's an encouragement to me, and I hope it was an encouragement to everyone here. And God, may we all just take to heart the things that he shared and realize the way that you are working. You have great things in store for us. Your ways are not our ways, but you have plans that are for good, and you are faithful. And those are truths that we can count on forever. So just thank you. Thank you so much for the truth of your word, for the way that you work in our lives, and for the testimonies that we can share with one another to reveal how that's true. And pray just guide our conversations tonight. May they be helpful and encouraging and uplifting. It's in Jesus' name I pray, amen.